I left half my beds empty every June for 3 years, watching weeds take over while I kept buying tomatoes and cucumbers at the store like someone who does not even have a garden. Not because I forgot, not because I ran out of room. I genuinely believed the season was already over. Spring was for planting. Summer was for waiting. That was the deal as far as I knew. Took me an embarrassingly long time to realize I had the whole thing backwards. And once I figured it out, my garden stopped going quiet in June and started producing food straight through to October. By early June, most gardens have weird empty gaps where spinach or lettuce already burned out. If that sounds familiar, here are 10 crops you can still put in the ground right now. Fast crops that actually prefer June conditions. Let me show you what those are and why most gardeners never figure this out until they have already wasted a few summers the same way I did. You spend all of April obsessing over your seedlings. You harden them off, you plant them out, you mulch everything beautifully. And then it is the first week of June and half your raised beds are just sitting there. Brown dirt, weeds creeping in at the edges. You look at them and think, well, I guess I will just wait until next year. I did that for 3 full seasons. 3 summers of half-empty beds that could have been feeding my family from July through September. I still feel dumb about that. What I did not know then is that there is an entire group of plants built for exactly this moment. Not plants you are forcing into a bad situation. Plants that genuinely thrive when the soil is warm, the frost is long gone, and the long days of summer are still ahead. June is not the end of the planting window. It is the opening of the second one. It comes down to soil temperature. By early June, ground temperature across most of the US and UK has climbed into the mid-60s to mid-70s Fahrenheit. Cucumber seeds that would have sat sulking in cold May soil for 2 weeks will crack open and push their first leaves up in 4 or 5 days. Bush beans that struggle to establish in a 48-degree April bed will sprint in June. The biology is working with you, not against you. The first June I actually tried direct sowing bush beans, I expected nothing. I had always heard beans need a long season. I planted a row of provider beans on the 9th of June, gave them a good drink, and basically forgot about them for a week. About 7 weeks later, I was harvesting enough beans for dinner every couple of days. From a row I planted in June. That was the moment the whole second wave idea clicked for me. Almost nobody I know plants bush beans this late, which still surprises me. No stakes, no trellises. They do not climb your fences and take over your yard. They just sit there, grow fast, and produce. 50 to 60 days from seed to harvest is real and consistent for varieties like Provider and Blue Lake. In most US and UK growing zones, a mid-June planting gives you beans in early August, when your neighbors are still waiting on their tomatoes. Warm soil is what they need. 65 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit at the root zone is their sweet spot, and that is exactly what June delivers. Plant about an inch deep, water evenly for the first 2 weeks, and get out of the way. Cucumbers are where the comparison really hit me. I used to plant mine in early May because that felt responsible. What I was actually doing was putting them into cold, waterlogged soil and watching them sit there looking miserable for 3 weeks before they did anything useful. My first June cucumbers completely outperformed the fancy transplants I had babied for 6 weeks indoors. The June seeds germinated in under a week. No transplant shock. By early August, I had more straight, clean fruit than any of my May plantings had ever given me. Warm soil again. Cucumbers want 60 degrees Fahrenheit minimum to germinate, and they want it warmer than that to actually run. Drop them in June and they start growing immediately. Straight 8 and bush pickle are both reliable for this. One caveat: when air temperatures push past 95 degrees for several days in a row, cucumber flowering slows down. If you are in a region that gets brutal July heat, give them afternoon shade or water early in the morning to keep the root zone cooler. The real trick is planting in waves instead of all at once. Most gardeners front-load everything. They cram April and May with as much as they can manage, then let the summer unfold on its own. The problem is that spring crops burn out. Your spinach bolts in July heat. Your lettuce turns bitter and sends up a flower stalk you never asked for. The beds those plants lived in go empty right in the middle of the season. June planting fills exactly those gaps. Kale sown right now gives you baby leaves in about 50 days, full mature leaves in around 65. That means fresh greens coming in during August and September, right when your spring kale has given everything it has. Swiss chard runs the same window, 50 to 60 days, and it handles summer heat better than almost any other leafy green you can grow. This is how you stop beds from going dead in midsummer. Lettuce works too, with one condition. Without afternoon shade, mine bolt in about a week during July. A piece of shade cloth or the natural shadow of a taller neighboring plant is enough to change that completely. Choose heat-tolerant varieties. Keep the soil consistently moist, and you will be cutting fresh salad in August while other gardeners are buying their greens at the store. Now picture your garden in the second week of October. The tomatoes are winding down. There is a chill in the morning air. You pull a beet out of the ground, and it is the sweetest beet you have ever grown. That comes from timing, not luck. Beets and carrots sown in June spend their slow maturation period moving into fall. By the time light frosts arrive, somewhere in late September or early October in most zones, the sugars in the root have concentrated in response to the cold. Detroit dark red beets and Chioggia both perform well on this schedule, reaching harvest in 50 to 70 days. For carrots, stick to varieties that finish in under 70 days if you are in a shorter season region. Nantes and Danvers types work well. Here, the real issue is soil texture. Heavy clay deforms June-sown carrots. Loosen the bed at least 10 inches deep before you sow, or choose a shorter, stubby variety that does not need the room. Zucchini in June is almost too easy. 45 to 55 days from seed to that first harvest. The plants start fast, ask for very little in terms of maintenance, and produce so reliably that the real challenge becomes keeping up with them. If you have an empty bed right now and want something producing food before the end of July, zucchini is your answer. Put it in and water it through the first 2 weeks while it establishes, and step back. One thing though, June seedlings dry out fast. Daily watering in the morning during the establishment phase is not optional. After that, most of these crops settle in and become much more forgiving. The last 3 are stupidly fast. Radish is the fastest crop in the garden, full stop. 25 to 30 days from seed to table. If you have a bed that will sit empty for just a month between one crop finishing and the next going in, radish fills that window completely. Summer radish in full heat can bolt and go bitter fast though, so look for heat-tolerant varieties or tuck them somewhere they get a little afternoon shade. French breakfast and cherry belle both handle warm conditions better than older standard types. Basil is the one that surprised me most. I had this backwards for years. I used to start it in May thinking earlier was better. But basil is a true heat lover, and May in most parts of the country is still a little cool and unpredictable. A June planting goes into genuinely warm soil, never gets shocked by a late cold night, and establishes faster with less struggle. 25 days to your first harvest, and the plants just keep giving if you pinch them regularly and do not let them flower. Peas are the unconventional pick on this list. Most gardeners think of peas as a spring crop only. And in many zones, they are right. But if you are in a region where the first hard frost does not arrive until late October or November, a June sowing gives you a fall harvest when the heat has broken and conditions are back in that sweet spot peas love. Zone 6 and warmer in the US is the realistic target here. If you are in Zone 3 or 4, skip the fall peas and use that space for one more radish succession instead. When I started treating June like a second spring, the empty beds disappeared. Beans next to the peppers, cucumbers where the spinach used to be, kale and chard lined up where the early lettuce finished. By August, you are picking food instead of watching dirt. By October, the roots are sweeter than anything from spring. And the season has been running for 5 solid months instead of 2. That one shift completely changed how my garden produces through summer. Tell me in the comments which of these 10 you are planting first. And if you have been leaving June beds empty like I did, hit subscribe. you are probably leaving a lot of growing time on the table.